Hey folks, it's Sean the Toga Brother. First of all, good morning or good night, good evening, however you want to put this, however you're watching me. Um, so I would like to start this podcast off by explaining a few things to you guys. Um, if you follow me on YouTube, you know I have some other podcasts and some other, locations, and that's fine, and you're welcome to go watch those. In fact, I encourage you to so you can understand where I'm coming from in this batch of YouTube podcast videos and so on and so forth. Okay, but where am I going with this? Because I know it's going to sound like I'm going on a tangent. Okay, so you guys know I have autism, and you guys are already aware of this. Now, I had to say that for the new guys that come in, the new gals who come in and don't know and want to get a little bit of a background. Okay, so a little bit of a backstory. I met this particular individual. She's very sweet. She's very kind. She's very endearing. She's absolutely wonderful. Back in 2020, back kind of when COVID started, I was working for an employer and things were kind of sitting off on a foot, and I had to make sure I made, good presentation of myself and yada, yada, yada. So, with that being said, I wanted to let you know that having pretty much known this person since then, now fast forward a couple years, it's now 2025, right? So about 5 years. We've gone through a lot of ups and downs. Now, I have to say this because I don't want to get flagged for this. They're not sponsoring me, neither are they, but they're just in my room as decoration. So I hope you enjoy. That's a Pepsi can, and it's from the 2003 limited edition. And that is a Malibu can. It was a promotional item. It was just meant to be displayed. So, anyway. Okay. So, I've known this person since 2020, right? It's a good 5 years. Have I known them and stayed with them for 5 years? No. We have had our ups and downs. We've had our splits. We've had our breaks. We've had all kinds of stuff. So, we initially met on a online chat group, and we got to know one another. I had a small little conversation. I think nothing of it. And I went on my way and I kind of chatted about, some small little things. And I got to where I was able to express myself freely and openly and all that good stuff. Not that I wasn't and I couldn't, but I felt like around this particular person, this woman, I was kind of on my edge the whole time. Like, you know, there's kind of weird people when you go on the internet and you kind of have to stay away from those people. And there's genuinely good people and you kind of have to weed the bad ones out from the good ones. I've always been a good one. I can be weird and I can be crazy, but I'm crazy in that it's for shock value, shock factor. I get a rise out of your, reaction. It's kind of fun, right? But it's kind of intentional. It's kind of not. I have to explain that to you because it makes sense later on this podcast. So, um, yes. So it get to where we got to know one another and we, exchanged messages back and forth. I know you guys that have watched me and have seen my other ones already know this story, but for the new people, I have to kind of brief you and catch you up here. Okay, I could easily just tell you go watch him and save me some time, but it's not cool, right? You want to be on the same page. I'm okay with that. So we're at a point where I can basically be myself, talk about any random subjects. I got her, socials, got her phone number, I got her, messages, and we connected, which yada yada yada. So we went back and forth, and I learned that this person was absolutely way more connected to me than I ever thought. Like we could just talk about stuff without any regard for any real mask or any real hidden thing, right? So there was a time that I was like, okay, instead of just talking about surface level subjects, I want to talk about some actual deep down, real legit topics, right? The ones that are underneath the surface, the ones that you really just kind of don't want to bite on a regular old social setting in a bar, in a date, and stuff like that. Like when you get to a date, you get to know one another, the real surface level things. When you get to date them, like, date consistently, the other dates, I say the other dates, like the 3rd, the 4th, the 5th date, that's where you touch the hard subjects, right? So now we've gotten to that part. So I've said some, opinionated, statements, and she's verbally addressed some of her statements. And I got to a point where I was like, okay, so I want to let you know that I feel pretty close to you, and I feel like we can say anything without any retaliation. Political, religious, love, past, secrets, stuff like that. Like we could just get it all out there on the table. And we still have that, connection. I don't think no less of her. I still think the world of her. And I always have and I always will. Um, and just so you guys are aware, I end up getting this tattoo for her. It just says, keep me safe. You keep me safe. You keep me wild. Okay. And I want to use that so that you guys kind of understand the dynamic between us. So when we communicate and when we talk, it's more of I want you to be better for yourself so that you're more happier and you're content in your own life instead of me being happy and content for you because I want you, right? It's I want you to be happy for you, okay? I want nothing to gain out of it, but just knowing that they're already happy, they're content, they're focused, they're goal oriented, and they love where they are, but they know that they can keep going, okay? So the the drag was that I got to a point where I'm like, "Okay, I think you would benefit from this." And they would be like, "No, I love you to death, but no." So I'm like, "Okay, it was intentional. It was meant to help you. It was meant for you. It was not meant for me. It was just meant for your sole benefit." And I got pushed back. It was a deflection. So I'm like, "Okay, I'll just ignore that. I'll disregard that. Put that in a box to never touch again." Right? Never again. Um, and so I ended up being like, okay, so if I can't openly talk about that, what else can I openly talk about without multiple backlashes? And I know there's going to be some backlash and it's going to be, obvious. It's going to be, something you can't get around. You can't reroute yourself, right? Like GPS, you can't reroute to get back on the same path. It's just kind of you have to step over and deal with it. Well, it got to one point where this particular person, um, I I traveled to go see them. Okay, a couple months ago. As a matter of fact, the date was back in April 2025. Okay, um, and I basically had like a whole week, vacation week, and I was just like, you know what, I'm coming to see you, right? And we were like the best of friends. It was so great. And we could just, talk about anything, laugh, cry. Yes, this person actually saw me burst into tears watching a movie as we were in their company. And I'll never forget that. It was a memory I'll never forget. I love that about this particular person. It's something that we're going to keep and cherish forever with the both of us. Okay. And we still do that to this day. We still watch movies and we still carry on and this, that, and the other, and so forth. Okay. So it got to eventually where I came back from that trip and it was an absolute marvelous trip. I mean, I got to see everything, and I'll have to talk about that in a podcast. It was just, I want to go back so bad because there's places I still haven't seen, things I haven't done, and there's people I want to meet. Okay. Um, so it was great. It was wonderful. I enjoyed it. And I came home and it wasn't like, all right, that's it. It was more like I'm at peace. I'm in internal reflective peace. I could zen out forever. I could have an out of body experience and comfortably know that both bodies would simultaneously be okay, right? So, um, sorry, but this fan here is to keep this cool, and I had to make sure this was running. Otherwise, this would overheat. Okay, so I and I can feel that because the airflow is flowing out of here from here as it is. Okay, so I came home and I was just in such a big zen, a big, energetic type of feeling. It was great. All right. And I was like, so where do I go from here? And I started having small conversations. I basically was like, I want you to know something. I don't know where this is going to take us. I don't know where we're going to be. I have a really strong, solid connection with you. You get me really well, but I have to tell you on the record, I don't deserve you, and you don't deserve me. In other words, you deserve better. And I did that with a very heavy chest, and I paused. And I kid you not, there were a bunch of messages that really came back and was like, listen, the one thing I'm scared about is I'm scared about you really getting into a feeling that I would rather not get into. Okay. And I think that in that sense, you know, it's just best if we just keep it like, neck and neck as we are, right? Like just keep it that way. I appreciate that. So I said, you know what? Yeah. Um, you know how I feel. I've obviously expressed that. I know how you feel. You've already expressed that to me. And there's no sense in changing how we feel for each other. Okay. But what would make me absolutely the most upset person I can ever think of is if I ever let you leave my life. That's how much you mean to me. I'd rather have you in my life than get what I ultimately want and not have what we had. Am I making sense to you guys? And I want to say that because there's a lot of reflection in that when you think about that. Okay. I know that there are some of you like, well, you can probably have something else and have the same connection and you just would get to keep that. I know, but the way I met this person was random, it was not planned. The way we communicate, it's like we get one another. There are certain subjects and conversations I don't even have to dance around, and she just knows that that's where I'm kind of dancing, right? She can just kind of piece the puzzle together without me actually verbally saying this. And we can also, as we're in like text, like if she's texting something and I'm texting something to her, additionally, we're also thinking of the alternative statements and messages we're trying to convey in addition to the verbiage we're using in text, right? So I'm kind of like, all right, I'm bored. Are you free? Kind of like, hey, I want to spend my time with you. Let's do something, right? So we're kind of on the same page essentially. And I appreciate that. Now, that was a mouthful, was it not? Well, I just barely got started. Okay. So we got to where we would watch movies and we would do it in real time and we would basically plan it the night before, a week before, that day, that night, that morning, however you want. We basically were on tune to where if she wanted to do it, she would let me know, let's schedule this so I can schedule my schedule, her schedule, my schedule around you, me. Okay. And that's the dynamic that we had, right? She lives in a different country and I live in the States. Okay. And so there's a time difference, but also a location difference, right? So I kind of had to make sure that my schedule is different with hers. So that we would both basically be like, hey, I have this at 7, or I have this coming at 1 hour. Can we do it at X, Y, and Z? Yes, that's fine because you'll be done and I'll have this completed, right? End of point and issue. So we would do that multiple times and we would also be like, okay, so we're gonna do it tonight. Let's do it, at this time. And I'm like, yeah, cool. either I'm at work or I'm out running errands, and I'll be like, "Hey, I'll let you know when I get home." And she'll be like, "Yeah, please do. Let me know when you get home so we can start this." And then when I'm out running, she'll text me like, "Hey, I'm ready. Whenever you're free, let me know. We can start it up." I'm like, "Cool." So I get home and I'll say, "Let's watch this." Pull it up, and she goes, "Well, I don't have that, because all the restrictions against certain streaming services. I'm not going to get into that, but you guys can figure that on your own, okay?" But the point is that we would have sometimes some issues where stuff that was available to her wasn't available to me. Stuff that was available to me wasn't available to her. Okay, you get that, right? Now, got it. So we would go back and forth trying to find something that we both had, that we both would enjoy, that we could both watch given the time. Like if it was 11:30 and it was 2 hours and a half long, that'd be like one and a half or 1:30, finish time, and that's not cool with somebody, right? Especially if you understand and you appreciate their sleep time and their free time. So it got to where we would just pick stuff. I'm like, okay, let's watch this show. Yeah, cool. Put in an episode so and so. Cool. All right, go back to beginning. Let me know when when you're ready to count down. I go 3, 2, and 1. We'll push play, and yeah, it was that right. So couple months later, I was in a room and I was talking with a couple of individuals, just as chat, right? And I was like, I've learned now that you just should show up as your genuine individual self, right? People don't want to see a mask. There's no point in masking because they want to see the real you, right? You want to see the real me face to face. Do you not? Okay. So that's what we're going to get. We're gonna get the real me from now on, okay? I'm not masking anything unless I'm physically in an area where I'm not comfortable and I need to suss out what the um, normal routine and function is for that specific thing, right? Like if I go to a different country and I don't know that country, I'm gonna have to suss out how they are so I can act accordingly. Or if I go to an event, like if I go to you don't necessarily wanna act the same as you go to a football game as you would if you go to a theater play, right? It's different. You're not rowdy in a theater, but you're not quiet at a football game. You're rowdy, okay? So you have to suss out what your environment is like, okay? So I was in that particular chat room and I met, these people, and I met one person in particular, and we really hit it off. We kind of clicked, and they basically was like, "Hey, listen, I really think you're cute and I think that you and I would get along really well. Let's see where this goes." And I was like, "Okay, I kind of taken aback by this, but appreciate that, and I, respect that. We'll see where this goes." And then she goes, "And furthermore, I've always had my eye on you months and months and months ago when I was being in a relationship and I wasn't being treated properly and correctly. And you were just very sweet and genuine." She's talking to me. "You were very sweet and genuine and kind, and you didn't care about what people thought of you. You were great to be around." I'm like, "I appreciate that, and you're right, you're absolutely right. That's exactly the correct, you know, guess and, thought and idea. And that's just who I am. That's just because I see no point in being anything else, right?" So we got to know one another, things got forward. Now, this girl that I met that was in another country has always been my best friend ever since I knew her. It was like we knew each other from the start. It was like it was solid, right? And it was like that same connection that before I got to know this new person, I wanted to know what she thought of her, as in like, "Hey, wanna let you know, I just got asked out, and they wanna know where things could lead us." And because remember, this other particular person pretty much set the boundary for me, like where she wants the intent, it's all laid out, all solid, right? So I was like, "Hey, I want to know your real, opinion on this. What do you think?" And she goes, "Well, to be honest," and she was telling me, her opinion. I'm not gonna tell you verbatim what it was because that's none of y'all's business, and that's between her and I. But she basically verbally told me, and I was like, "Okay, I appreciate your opinion. Your opinion's valid, and that's what I love about you. I've always loved that you've given me your true, genuine, honest opinion, and I love that. Thank you." Um, and if it wouldn't have been for that, I don't know where you and I would have been in our connection, in our, our thoughts, right? because that's where we think together. So I basically kept on going, and I found that I put most of my time into hanging out with this new gal, right? To see if we could really hit it off. And, we got into text and we got into phone calls and this, that, and the other thing. Got a little heavy, sometimes. And I was like, okay, I can really see myself going off with this. And one night, so this is where we're really getting into where the point of this whole podcast and video is coming from. So you guys get the background. So there's kind of a backstory. Now, here we go. Set your plates, set your tables, grab your seats, grab your pull-ups, whatever you want to, because it's about to get real. One night, as I would with my old BFF, right? The one that was in another country, okay? I was supposed to watch something on TV with them. Well, as it turns out, I completely forgot. I did. I just forgot about it. And I also, from this new particular woman, I was asked to do the same thing. So it was like, I'm kind of in a pickle. Should I go with this particular new woman who has just expressed that there's something that's particularly there? Or shall I stick around with my best friend of almost 5, some months, 5 years and some months, and figure out where we go from there? Well, I made the wrong choice. I decided to go with this new gal, and I watched TV, and we got a couple episodes, and I get on the shuttle bus the next day. I go to sleep. It was great. I had a great time. I get on the shuttle bus to go to work the next day. And I sent a message to my old BFF, and I said, "Hey, what you up to?" She goes, "I don't wanna talk to you right now." I'm like, "Okay." So, I wasn't trying to get a reaction, but one of her favorite things is, like, videos to watch, to entertain themselves, and I wasn't trying to, send them messages like, dirty messages. It wasn't messages like, "Oh, I think you're rude, I think you're arrogant," type of messages with that connotation. Was just like videos. It was, of people that were, getting hurt, like funny haha videos, right? So I sent one and she goes, "I don't want you sending me these videos." Go, "So you don't want me to contact you, as in you don't want me to speak to you in conversation, but you also don't want these videos for you to watch on your own time without me to be there in conversation." It's not like, if you don't speak to me about that video, so be it. As long as you're entertained by it, that was the whole point of it, right? So I'm like, okay, I think this might be the end of my BFF, and it was the strongest connection relation that we've ever had, right? It was so strong and profound that when I often was not in contact before that particular point with this particular woman, I often found them in movies, I often found them in books, in magazines, in stores, on the radio, in songs, in um drives, as in like going to work, going to the, errands, going to do something fun, in movies, as in like actual physical movie theater. I would recognize, thoughts and memories of this particular person. So they were always encompassing me. And it got to where I was like, ugh. So this is gonna happen again, isn't it? I'm gonna get upset, I'm gonna get frustrated, and it was bad. And I legitimately was trying to reflect on it. At the same time, I was trying to see where the relationship was going, and I realized very quickly that it was just not a good relationship. But I had to give it my honest effort, your honest try. The only thing that's sexier and a man and a woman and the intimacy is effort. Effort is attractive, let me tell you. So I stuck around and I give it my all effort. Okay. And so I end up having a really bad week one day. And for the lack of better words, it was just weather related where I am. It was just nothing but rain and showers, and it was flooding. And, because I work for an airline and I work at an airport, we were expecting to have a lot of work. And the place that I was having to work that day was going to have a ton of work. So I was like, I just got to grin up and bear it. And so the first part of my shift, I just muscled through it and like, just get over today. I'll just go home, sleep, and wake up the next day, deal with it. Get up next day and deal with it. Well, something kind of didn't sit well with me in a good way. It was weird. It was crazy. It was like some butterfly and some thing was like glowing around me, not physically, but just spiritually, was glowing around me that something good was going to happen. Well, folks, I went upstairs into the terminal area, and this was my lunchtime. So I got, my lunch break. I stood in line and I was texting one of my old exes, and I was like, "Ha, you know, what do you think of, this and that?" We were talking about this, that, and the fourth. And lo and behold, what do you know? Do you know what I got? I'm gonna cover the name, but there. You guys can see it? It's a video. And it is a video of a natural event, an earthquake. I'm like, why would you send an earthquake of an earthquake hit you? So we got to talking, and she literally wrote, "We had an earthquake today. This was down by the Malecon we walked by." And my butterflies in my stomach flew all over my body. It was great. You guys, I'm sorry. I'm burning up here and I don't want to get flagged for nudity, and I'm wearing pajamas. So I'm going to run this fan on low. So I apologize if you can hear it in the background. I have to have this on. I'm just burning up. Sorry. Hold on. Okay. I hope you can't hear it as much in the background, but I've got to have it on so that it cools me off. Much better. Okay. So I basically replied, I said, "Oh my God." So I'm going to give you a couple of banters back and forth to kind of set this scene, and then I'm going to skip a few. I'm going to skip a few. I'm going to skip because what I'm doing is I'm withholding her identity because I don't think she wants you guys to have, her socials and all that stuff. But she gave me permission to do this because this is a very important and critical life lesson. Okay. So I said, "Oh my God, that's scary. Are you all okay?" The people in that the people in that close area, she goes, "It was very scary." I said, "That's a lot worse than what we get in the US." I said, "Wow." She goes, "It was 6.1. My mom had a panic attack because she got stuck in a room back in the 80s when there was an 8 point 0 degree earthquake, like an 8.0, right?" I said, "Holy cheese balls. Can't imagine being stuck like that. It makes sense why she panics when there's one, even a small one too." And she says, "Yep, we all good though." Um, and then I said, "It's hurricane season for us in the States. Nothing as bad as earthquake though. I'm super glad everyone's okay." Just remember, reiterating, I'm glad she and her family's okay, right? Like I'm trying to deflect this conversation about being me. I'm just like, I want to make sure that you're okay. Because when you send that, like saying, "Hey, we just got hit with a massive earthquake," like, just want to let you know we were hit. I'm okay, but I want you to know this. So I was like, just reiterating, "Hey, are you okay? I'm glad that everyone's fine." She goes, "Thank you." She says, "Are you okay?" And I said, "Physically, yes." Mentally, no. She says, "Why?" I said, and then while she was typing, I verbally said, "I haven't forgotten about your package, though," because I was supposed to end up, sending something to her in the mail, and I had it for some time, and I was going to, but since we basically had that arg she's like, "I don't wanna hear from you. I'm really mad at you. Ugh, I can't deal with you right now. Sorry, I have the money hiccups." I'm like, "Okay, so what do I do with this item now? Am I supposed to just keep it? Am I supposed to hold on to it? What am I supposed to do?" Well, I kept it, okay? So I said, "I haven't forgotten about your package, though." She goes, "Forget about the package." I said, and sh when I replied to her message, she says, "Why?" I go, "Do you truly wanna know why?" She goes, "I thought you were doing great being in love and all." I said, "Nope. This particular person and I have called it quits a week ago." She goes, "What the fuck? Why?" Sorry, I didn't mean to use that language. I'm sorry. WTF. I say, "She was way too much for me in certain measures, and I can get into that if you want to." She goes, "Really?" I said, "Like, overly aggressive. I couldn't deal with that." "Yes." And she goes, "You met?" I said, um And I basically said something. I'm not gonna read it because it's something you guys don't need to know, but long story short, it was the reason we split, okay? And it had to do with our morals and our, kind of indifferences, and it's really what set me apart at the very end. I was like, "Yeah, no, we're not gonna be an item anymore." Okay? But I did say that was enough to turn me completely off. And, uh, she says, "You told her?" I said, "I have to confess, you were exactly right. There were a lot of red flags. You were correct." And I said, "I did. I called off the relationship." She says, "Well, we ignore them when we're smitten." I said, "Yes, we do. I was just I was just like that with you and one of your exes. Now I see what it would be like if I was still with her." She goes, "Well, I'm sorry. I know you liked her." And then I basically said, "No." When she said, "Forget about the package," basically was like, "No, I made you a promise. I'm keeping it. I get paid. I'm sending it out soon." Okay. And then I replied to one of her messages that said, "I know you liked her." So I said, "I did, but there's others that want to choose quality time over time you can wait for later." Um, so then jump down a couple. I'm not going to name her. I'm just going to say this woman. And I said, basically, so it was the name question mark, like, "Hey, I want to get your attention for a minute." Okay. So this lady, "I truthfully thought you were never going to speak to me again, but I couldn't bring myself to get rid of um, your package because of that." She goes, "I was mad, but I can't be mad at you for that long. I knew you wanted it, so I kept it, the package." And then I replied what she just said. "Mhm, I noticed that about you. That's why I didn't contact you for a while. Me, that's why I didn't contact her." She goes, "I was mad, but I couldn't be mad at you for long. And your feelings were very valid." I was validating her feelings and her frustration and her upsetness. And I said, "I can't be mad at you either." Now, um, she goes, "You were very understanding of me being away from our friendship when I was with my boyfriend, so I wanted to do the same for you. That is all." Again, and by the way, so a small little story. This whole situation, this whole scenario kinda is the same scenario that originally was the reason we kind of split our friendship up, right? I found out she was with a guy and I was catching feelings. I'm like, "Whoa, I have to step away because you're talking with someone and I'm catching major feelings for you. So I have to move away from this, from us, from you, right? So you can focus on that particular person without having to worry about me in that picture, right? Because I don't want to be in between you two and all that stuff." So I said, "I was, and I'm glad you can see that now. I think the world of you. Don't ever forget that." She goes, "I think I was truly mad only for a day." And I said, "Even when I'm pissed." She says, "Same." And I like that with a heart. I said, I hate to have to cut this short, this person, but I'm about to end my lunch break. I really enjoyed talking with you. It's been a heck of a day, so I should probably go help out. I'll catch you later, maybe tomorrow if that's okay. Now, one of her favorite things to do is to send me videos or things of um this particular person, right? So that is her dog, and it's just a video of the dog. And I was like, "Oh," and she says, "Okay, take care." And she says, and I say, "Will do." I said, "Thank you for reaching out. That made my day. X X X X X." Right? She says, "Don't forget to have fun. Remember, we were in basically a huge tension, a huge argument, right?" And I said, "I won't. You too." Right? And then, out of nowhere, so that was I have to tell you the timing here because it really shows you and emphasizes. So that was June 15th. Okay. Fast forward a couple days to June 19th, right? Now, I didn't say anything. That's all I got, right? It was just a video and it says Lima. And it's literally a video of all the things we did in Lima. It's literally a video of all the pictures that we took, like a picture video of my trip, and I liked it. So, June 29th or June 19th, I basically said, "You're subtly saying you want me to come back and visit again, huh?" And she says, "Of course I do. We have a lot more to explore." So, again, she initiated this. I said, "All kidding aside, that was a really cute video, a collage of moments from that trip. I'll find a few days together and come out to visit you. Since that hotel was right next to where you work, I may end up booking that same hotel as well. It was super convenient, especially during days you had to work." She says, "Yeah, cool. My feet need to be better too." I said, "That's a priority, 100%. It probably won't happen in the next 2 months, just so we're both on the same page. How did your um, event turn out?" And she just says, "Look at the vid." Um, Oh, because I ended up having to go into work. So she sent me a video. It was a YouTube video, and it was a an event video, and she goes, "Spot me." And I go, I was trying to figure out the time that I was trying to spot her, and then I took a snapshot. She goes, "Right there." And she goes, "Yep." So, again, so we're bantering back and forth. Um, I was telling her about her dress and how she looked really nice. Okay, so then that same day, later on that night, I said, "You'd never do this, and I would never do this to you either. It's funny AF, though, what they said at the end." So it's a picture, and I'll read it to you. It says, "Next time you decide to ignore the 30 reels I sent you, remember that means I thought of you 30 times, you ungrateful meatball." And I was just LOLing at it. And she laughed at it, and then I sent a little funny, you know, GIF was a meatball, and she like, "Haha, that." So she at least is picking herself back up on her feet, right? Like we're getting back to where that thought was, okay? And I sent her a couple of dog photos and stuff like that. And I literally was like, "Okay, I'll stop. I wanted to send these when you and I weren't talking." I wasn't saying I'm mad that we weren't talking. It just says I wanted to send these when we weren't talking. So I saved them till things settled, right? Saying, "I know there was an issue between us. I kept these so that later on, if we ever got back to being mutual and cordial, right, as we are now, like fast forward a couple, days, maybe a week or two, I would be able to resend them and it would be the same emotion, the same feeling, the same effect, right?" And she says, "I'm cold, but I want ice cream," which is like out of the blue. And this is one thing that she used to do that I always loved. And I says, "That sounds really good. like even a blend of fruit and cream together swirled with caramel on top of it. And she basically hearted that, like, that's what she likes too. I said, "By the way, confession, your beanie looks super good on you the other morning." She goes, "Thank you." I go, "You're welcome." And then I sent a picture of a sunset, and I said, "Wish I caught it sooner. The sun was perfectly placed at the right time. This will have to do." She says, "Looks awesome." So then I kept going on and, sent things together. Um, and then I sent a selfie of me at June 22nd. That's the selfie right there. And she says, "LOL, you look so happy." And I said, "'Cause I am. It was so great to see all of you tonight. Even you too. Missed you so much." And she hearted that. So things are progressing, right? I mean, and I'm making this particular point through these videos and these messages because I want to illustrate this life lesson, this lesson to be had. Okay. And then there was an interview that she sent me, and so on and so forth. It was a cat video. Um, Now, one thing I want to tell you is that there are times where she will send me a message and I'll just go in a novel, not to be ignorant, but to give her some depth, right? Um, Now I want to read this, okay? Because this particular message resonated with me, and I think this is where things were solid. Let me read this to you. And I'm not going to use the name here because, again, social media. It says, "On a side note, you would normally think there's no chance that someone would say sorry for their behavior, but it killed me that my decision was truly the thing that separated us both, even if it was just our friendship. In the end, I knew why you did that when you removed yourself in that manner. I'm incredibly beside myself for my actions that led to this. I know I'm not perfect, and this is something I'm actively working on resolving. It wasn't right or fair to you at all that you were second choice after we agreed to make a plan. You don't have to accept my apology at all." And I felt like, "You don't have to accept my apology at all, and I will understand if you don't. I felt like I needed to apologize to you for being there through everything, left, right, up, or down. Your friendship means the world to me, and you will always have a special place in my heart. Whatever happens to us both, I will always think highly of you and always hope for the best in your growth and choices. Being with you for this long as your best friend has been the best gift I've ever been given because you turned me into the best thing ever in all of 38 years, and I can never repay you. Just know that I will always do better because I can always be better for not only you guys, but for me as well. XOXO, much love and respect, this person." On a side note, I'd like to reflect on the situation by sharing my thoughts and lessons in a podcast on YouTube. Fast forward to today. Keeping your identity hidden from the public. She says, "Of course. I don't mind. I wanted to know, why did you like the girl you liked? I don't want to sound um weird, but I just want to know. That doesn't sound like the person that you would have gone into." Um okay, I'm going to read what I replied because I'm not really oversharing here. I says, "She was sweet and sincere. I felt as though she was just as a part of me as she was the other people in the room too, but she kept our conversations private. Like I knew I could trust her with our personal stuff and not mix it in chat when we are in public chat room, even a room that small. When I see people that would make a good best friend, potentially a life partner, That's the kind of people I find attractive. And she hearted that particular message. Because let's be honest, even we will get old and our looks will start fading, skin will sag and get wrinkly, but your character will never change unless you force it. This is gonna sound really ridiculous, but I can never date someone super, super hot or sexy. I just can't because then the mentality is, they they like her better than me, or even I'm just with her because she's super hot. Um, I was never about picking people who were above an 8 on the hot scale. It was about who would have stuck around when the basic foundations have collapsed. And then when she asked me and said to me, "You look so happy," I said, "It's funny what the right people in your life can do to your mood and your overall well being, even if they exist for like 15 or even 30 minutes." Ever since you reached out and reconnected with me, my whole week has been nothing but blessings and all around. I would love to tell you all about them, but I don't want to overwhelm you. But just know it was 75% you and the rest all my hard work. I know that was a lot to read. Sorry. She says, LOL, it's okay. The first time um I was in there, I didn't know what to think, but I do now. She goes, "But I've always felt bad for thinking that way. LOL." Um she says, "Good," to one of the I says, la I watch RuPaul's Drag Race with you, and we tear into the drag queens all episode long. It's dark, but I know your real true character." She goes, "Good. This visit to Lima proved that you are legit a very deep and sweet woman." She says, "I'm not that superficial." I say, "Nope, not at all." She says, however, I do think you are way better now than you were." And I said, "Aw, thank you. I appreciate that. Um, think you've made it clear before, but the whole out of your league thing doesn't apply to people in dating. At least that's what you told me. Am I wrong? If I am, please correct me." And I didn't get anything out of that. And then I sent something that was like basically one of the biggest signs that you've met the person in which you noticed them. So no like, I didn't get offended. No real issue there. Okay. And then I said, "I can't speak for you, but I bet you agreed to. I can confirm you make life less anxious when we are talking." And she hearted that. So she likes talking to me. She likes conversing with me. She's calm talking to me. I don't, make her anxious. I don't stress her out. So then I sent a video. I said, "This was a video I wanted to send you. It's a dog watching a concert." And she hearted that. And then she sent me a video of her dog on the bed and stuff like that. Um, and then she would just send me funny, dark movies, like as in videos. Um, and then we basically would just go on and on. And then because we were disconnected and, when Stitch came out, I went to go see it. It wasn't intentional. I wanted to go see it, and there was no way she was gonna let me basically talk with her, and I don't wanna upset her and frustrate her, so I went to go see it on my own time. And so, hindsight 2020, I really should have waited, but I went anyway, so I liked it. And so I, sent a couple of selfies to her. She goes, "You home?" And I sent her, some audio clips and stuff like that. Um, I said, "When you turn over to rest your eyes," I was at home. Right after that, I ran back out to get some things. And I sent her a photo of the things I had to grab, one of which was really important and was necessary. It was a bunch of hangers and stuff like that. She goes, "Not the stripper lights, ha ha ha," because it's one of those LED lights, stuff like that. Um, and I said, "Yep, it's gonna go right underneath the cabinet." She goes, "No." And I told her where it would end up going. And then she says, "Okay." And then she sends me an image of her like upset face that she's cold because she's clearly cold. Um, and then she basically was like, "Hey, I don't think it's gonna end up going to where I'm gonna be able to come over for a while. So we'll have to see where things go." I'm like, "Okay." And then she says, I want to go to Europe, this, that, and the fourth. Maybe we can, you know, do all that. And then I was hanging out with a friend, a new friend that I met while we were hanging out in my room, basically my apartment. Okay. It was just me by a waterfall, right there. And I said, I saw this today before I was on PAL, and I had someone take a picture of it. And I said, standing in front of the waterfall in Houston, I said, she goes, what is it? And I go, she says, oh, cute. It says it's 11,000 gallons of water. Um, I sent her some videos, some songs, sex, some funny videos. Okay. And then a couple days later, June 25th, today, tomorrow, and forever, wherever you find it, whoever gets to be your person, you are always worth it, whoever their name was. And it says, just in case no one tells you today, you are worth keeping, worth committing to, worth making a priority, and worth loving. Now, I did that because I was subconsciously pulling out worth committing to and worth making a priority because that's where I faltered. That's where I failed. And I was admittedly saying, you are a priority because you made me a priority all the other times. And you still made me a priority that day when we got into an argument. So, um, I said, as your bestie, I have to bring it upon myself to share the news with you. Happy Stitch Day. Now, it was June 26th, 626, Stitch Day. And then it was the actors in the movie and all that. She goes, did you get to see Lilo and Stitch? I did. I said, I did. It was such a really cute movie. I would totally go see that movie again. It was that good. She says, cool, which is kind of what she does. Did you get to see it yet? She says, nope. It's out of movies now. We'll watch it when it's on Disney. Um, and I says, when it streams, you want to watch it together? She says, I say, the day it comes to Disney Plus, we can watch it then. And so I sent a couple of videos. And then she sent me a video of basically, um, you know, this cookie that you put on a tray and you bake it and it looks really gross and stuff. And I was like, haha, it's the ugliest thing I've ever seen. That's that and the other. And then she, comments back and forth. There's that and the fourth. But so I wanted to um basically address this podcast because if you notice, there was a point that, yes, I very easily could have just said, you know what? Screw it. I'm just going to let it go. That was gone. I'm going to build a new life, a new friendship, a new relationship. Screw that 5 years. I have other BFFs that I've known longer. I don't care about that person. No, because the connection I had with this person, as you can see, made a huge impact on me. Now, you guys want to know something else? Do you see the length of my beard? It used to be down here. The length of my hair used to be down to my shoulders. Do you know who convinced me to cut this and make this look really good? This person. This particular individual has been the light of my life. And it was the moment that I realized people won't be in your life because they want their time to be busy, as in you're not their busy time. You are genuinely their free time. You are genuinely their solitude. You are genuinely their home. And for the longest time, this particular person was my home. Coming home, long day at work, My home. Really upset, just want to be alone, my home. In the mood to watch a sappy video, sappy movie, my home. Want to geek out and watch a couple episodes of RuPaul and just watch people wear some of the most ridiculous outfits in some of the most immaculate outfits, my home. But not once did she ever open my cam, as in this particular platform, because you can watch, like, video through, the internet. Not once did she ever open my video, be like, "You're gross. You're weird," or "I can't deal with you. I can't handle you," in that, like, disgusting way. It was always like, "What are you doing?" Kind of like, "Just explain this to me so I can understand you," type of thing. And I was genuinely giggling, haha, because I have a couple things that I've done, a couple things that I've shown you, a couple things that, I deal on a regular basis that people don't think is normal, but I do it anyway because it's comfortable to me, right? Not once did she ever judge me. Mainly because she watches RuPaul drag show and drag shows. I don't know if you guys know anything about drag shows, but it's basically males, okay? Typically gay males, right? That dress up as women in drag, okay? And they compete in these shows to be the best drag queen, RuPaul's drag queen, right? Drag shows, okay? But they're their true self. They can be their real true self on these drag shows in women's clothes, right? They're gay, they're, in drag. So it's kind of like a 2 for 1. They're both the same people within one themselves. And since she asked me to watch that with her, I was like, "So you're not gonna judge me? You're not gonna open my cam?" I mean, I granted wouldn't do this to her, but I could be completely naked, do something really weird. She wouldn't judge me for it. She'd be like, "That is wild. Why did you even come up with that?" I'm like, "I don't know." But she wouldn't judge me for it, right? She wouldn't be like, "Hey, y'all, it's kind of a weirdo. It's kind of a freak." It's like, "I'm not gonna open you again." You know what I mean? That's my home. Now, you think that this whole podcast was to hope that something more comes of this. No. The main point of this podcast, folks, is that I'm back to where I wanted to be. I'm back to where I need to be. Okay. And I, let me see if I can go back quite a ways, because I want to tell you and I want to read you the conversation that we basically had that night. Son of a gun. Okay. I have to do this before I go back to there. No, I'm going to do that. Okay. Let me go back to where we originally had that argument. Okay. Because it needs to be stated so you fully, I mean truly and fully, understand the dynamic between us, as in me and this particular, lady, this particular woman. Because she's a doll, absolutely a doll. And I think if any of you get the chance to meet her, run into her, you should. Okay. All right. The 20th, 15th. Okay. I'm getting close because I'm getting to the 50th. Okay. Okay. I'm getting close. Okay. Now, in light of letting you know that she is absolutely amazing and wonderful, I'm going to briefly talk about some of these things that she shared with me, okay? And um, I'm gonna read you the very first message that she ever wrote in this particular scenario. She goes, Sean, please do me a favor. Let me be mad for a bit. I'm mad at myself for waiting for you, for putting myself in that place. I should never be vulnerable like that with anyone, even with close friends. Um, that whole event reminded me that I shouldn't trust that much in anyone. Um, People who lied and hurt me because I trusted too much. And she basically was like, I think you need to spend time with the person that you're with right now and give her more of your time. She says, you and I will always be friends. I truly love you as my dearest friend, but now I have to have different priorities. But now you, as in me, have to have different priorities, and I understand. And she goes, I'm gonna be here whenever you need me, but I can't go back to being hurt for over trusting. Just be happy. And I replied to that and I said, because you want that for me, I'll be your BFF forever. You're allowed to be mad at me. I won't even argue against it. She says, it was a long time. I didn't cry for feeling left out. I'm not going to go back to that. Put your attention where it's deserved. I'm not going to stop being your friend. Just get in touch with me when you truly can. No pressure. I'm done being disappointed. And I said, and in reply, I basically was like, upset, crying, sad face. I said, thank you for being honest with me. I said, good, because I made you a promise to watch Stitch with you, and I'm holding you to that promise. And she goes, yeah, forget about that. You obviously have priorities that exclude me. And I truly was hurt. I was devastated. And so I sent a video that says, that was a really funny video. And then I sent another one of a cat licking. And then I sent another one of a dog. And then she says, please stop sending me videos. That's all she says. And that was May 18th at 10 in the morning. May 19th at 10:43 at night. I says, Stuber is a great movie. Check it out when you have time. It's super funny. That was May 19th. This is now June 2nd. Let's do the math here. That's 2.5 weeks. Hi, hope you are good. It was hoping I was hoping you could tell me how much do I owe you for buying and sending my dress so I can send you half of the charge. Please let me know, right? I said on June 2nd, I'm doing well. It's good to hear from you. I still haven't sent it for reasons. I don't have enough money to send it to you right this week. I'll have to send it to you next week when I get paid. You don't owe me anything for your dress. I'll send it to you anyways. Don't worry about covering the shipping. You can have it. I'm like, you've been that close to me and you've meant that much to me that I'll cover the shipping. I'll cover the charges. I'll cover whatever I need to. She says, thank you. I hope you're happy. She says, you deserve to be happy, as do I. And then she says, I'd always love you, my friend, but for now, I think we are good on our own. I said, as do I. I hope good things find their way to you and that you find whatever it is you need to fulfill your needs. I'll mail your dress to you when I get the money to send it via postage. I'll send you the tracking information and everything. Thank you for giving me the best 5 years of my life. I could not have done it without you. You meant the world to me and so much more. And she hearted that. And then she says, I'm not dead, lol. And I want to reply and read the next two of them. Okay. So I then say to that response, I hope not. Your action and response to me is valid. Her name. I'm not arguing that. However, you truly have been the best thing that has ever happened to me. Like, ever. And I constantly reflect on that, especially all that you got to watch me mature and evolve the last 5 or 6 years. None of this would have been possible without you. I get you don't feel the same way, but I highly respect what you have done for me and especially to me, for molding me into the gentleman that I am today. Thank you. She says, I hope you know I love you, my friend. It really hurt me. You forgot about our plans. However, I get that happens when you are in love. So I've let you have your space so you can have more time with the girl you like. I do miss you though, but I wish the best for you. Always. X. So that was kind of where things led up, right? So you can see where she was able to express her concern, right? Her opinion. Did I argue? Did I get upset? Did I get pissed? No. I let her vent. I let her speak. I don't know if you guys know this, but women don't like a resolution. They just need you to listen. So I let her vent. I let her, tell me what she needed, right? And as you will probably think, and see little dots, you're like, all right, just gonna start sending a message, yada 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 yada. If I'd have done that, past that point, nothing would have been possible at all. None of this would have been fine at all. None of it. You know why? Because I've learned that my ego, when inflated, is garbage. It's garbage taken out to the curb for the trash man to take to the waste dump. It's no good. Okay. So, because I've learned this, I just let her vent. And then I said, now, here's where the kicker is. Here's the caveat. You can't just ignore what they say, right? If you truly want to savor and keep what you have, I highly recommend you do this. I highly recommend you validate what they said. Tell them, listen, thank you for telling me this. I appreciate you venting to me. I appreciate you expressing this to me. You aren't wrong, and the actions and the emotions that you feel are legit. They're valid. They're yours and they're okay. I can't wrong you for that. Now, I then went on and I expressed why I felt like that was what I did, right? I didn't do it in an argumentative way. I just approached it as, yeah, I messed up. This is what I did. I'm sorry, and I'm making a conscious effort to make it different. Let me repeat that. I'm making a conscious effort to make it different. Because the more you make a choice, a mistake, you're making a choice, right? The more you make a mistake, commit a mistake, you're making a choice. But if there's no real resolution into making what you want and the reason you're fighting any better, you're making a conscious choice to kill it, to end it, right? Which means basically you're going to go your separate ways. Okay. So it was about a couple days ago. We were basically kind of all, we came through, and this particular night we were supposed to watch something and we couldn't find anything that we both had. So she was like, you know what? I've always wanted to see a documentary. And it was a documentary of Eberlin, right? The life of Eberlin. And basically, well, you go look YouTube the um come on. There. Okay. Life of Eberlin. Okay. So if you Netflix that, which I think is on Netflix, it may be on other platforms, but if you Netflix search that, you should be there. Recommend you check that out, right? right down there. Okay, Life of Eberlin. If you check that out, it's a very, very, very dramatic documentary, and it made me cry. I'm not gonna tell you when. I'm not gonna tell you where, but at the very end of it, all right, I basically was like, so confession. That was really good. That was absolutely one of the best documentaries I think I've ever seen. And we just went back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Um, where is it? Okay. Um, yeah, The Remarkable Life of Eberlin on Netflix. Um, oh, okay. I said, she goes, "To Wong Fu, thanks for everything with Julie Newmar." I said, "That one I have on Apple TV." She goes, "Same for rent." I said, "I'll rent the movie for us to watch tonight." She goes, "No, I can't rent that one, not right now. There's a documentary I want to watch on Netflix, but I don't think you're into docs," meaning she doesn't think I'm into documentaries. I said, "No, let's watch that one. I'm down and I have it too." She goes, "Cool." I said, "Ready to count down?" She goes, "Yes." She basically isn't ready, so I was like, "Okay, that's fair. We'll go again. You ready?" And right off the bat, I said, "Do you know who this reminds me of?" And I go, reminds me of one of the people you know very close." She goes, "Oh my god." And so we went back and forth, and then at the very close to the very end, yeah, yeah, hold on. Um, so I basically was like, "This is too emotional for me." I kind of, want to keep going and see where this goes. And then we were talking, talking, talking. And at one point, okay, so I hate to do this, guys. This is going to be a huge spoiler alert. So if you don't want to know what happens at the end, pause this, come back to this, and go watch that documentary. You need to. You really need to. Okay. I'm telling you, you really need to. And come back. So if you don't care, I'm going to spoil this spoiler alert. You ready? I said, um, they should use his WoW nickname on his gravestone. She says, maybe it would reduce him to just a character, though. And I said, at the bottom of his gravestone, that became a very integral part of his life and impacted hundreds of others. She goes, maybe not up to us. I said, they should include that with a smiley face. And I said, I'm on the verge of tears, literal tears. And then I said, damn it. She goes, that made it for me. They did it. I said, yeah, they did it. Happy tears. She says, good. I said, this person, this particular lady that, is my freaking best friend. I said, I fucking love you. She goes, yep, I love you too. I said, that was so touching and lovely to watch. I said, and she says, indeed. I said, I don't deserve you. You're too good for me. Wow, that was worth spending my night with you. 1,000,000%. And she hearted both of those. On some real stuff, I would have 100% rented that and been okay with it, no question. Um, and I said, "Have you seen the documentary Inside of a Mind of a Dog?" And nothing. I said, third movie, you and I both have legit finished in tears. The movie we just saw. So we both literally ended that whole movie, the documentary, in tears. So you can see the dynamic between us, right? So we went from strangers to connecting to getting deep to then me having to walk away because I was, getting strong feelings to then like a while later reconnecting in all the socials and stuff like that, and then going back and forth. And then until just lately, we were basically, in an argument, and then come to find out, we're back in the same thing. Now, I want you guys to know something. Am I intentionally doing this? No. I'm human. I'm on the spectrum. People on the spectrum are not intentionally doing this either. We just sometimes we don't know better. Okay? But I can't not tell you the amount of times where I regret things that happened and I did because it impacted people that I love the most. And that hurts me, and it's absolutely overwhelmingly difficult to bear, to watch again and hear again and see again and know that it can happen again, right? So, the whole point of today's podcast, folks, was to share this lesson with you. At times when you feel like you're getting into a tiff with somebody, into an argument, within a disagreement, you need to keep some things into consideration. How close are you with them? What type of history have you had? What type of friends do they have connected with you? Where is their goal driving you? And where do they see you going? If you can answer these 5 questions with solitude within yourself, I wouldn't screw with them. I would keep them, I would hold on to them, and I would keep them forever. Because these are the type of people that you wanna keep around for life. Because I cannot tell you the number of times I go into the grocery store, Walmart, Target, the gas station, movies, my work, friend's house, my car, other people's car, outside, when I'm roaming on the streets, when I'm walking, that I stop and I realize I'm thinking of this particular person, this particular woman. I cannot tell you the number of times that I think about them because it's too many. Now, if I'd have just forgotten about them and let go of them and threw them away, I wouldn't have had my life as special as I do now. It wouldn't mean so much to me as it does now. And let me tell you something. Since that day that we reconnected with that one video of that earthquake, and we reconnected, and we just, instead of arguing and bickering and anger back and forth, we just came to a resolution and we just shared thoughts, right? Like I actually intentionally and truly, genuinely wanted to know her perspective. I wanted to know where her mind was, her thought was. And she got to know where my thought was. As you can see in that conversation, she legitimately asked me what my thoughts were instead of always just spitting out, spitting out, spitting out, spitting out. She just kept spitting out and not letting me have my time of day. That was her saying, "I want nothing to do with you. You're gone forever. I hate you. Ugh, you don't make anything to me." Right? But she didn't. She cared. She asked. She questioned. She asked for clarity, concern, loyalty, support. You feel me? That's all the whole point of this podcast was. People like this need to be in your life. People that you go hang out at the bar, one night stand, you get drunk with, you text people that are strangers that are not good for your growth, not good for your well-being, they're not good for your goals. Kick them out. You need people like this. So this was the biggest lesson that I've learned this year. Do not let ego get the best of you. It will destroy you. Because it always happened to me. Well, folks, this has been quite a lengthy podcast. I appreciate y'all sticking around and y'all listening to me. It was quite an eventful podcast, long one. But I hope it resonates with you. And I hope you go check out some of those other podcasts that I've done. All right. Thank y'all so much for letting me banter, rants, share stories, laugh, joke, cry, all that with you. So go watch those other ones. And until next time, guys, I'm Sean. I'm the Toga Brother. I'm out. Stay tuned. Bye bye.